Doctors pronounce the newborn dead. Yet during the funeral, the mother hears her baby crying and is unable to fathom what has occurred. Find out what happened in this based on real event story and let us know where you're listening from. As night fell on Greenwood, a quaint town celebrated for its deep roots and strong community spirit, a scene of pure love and eager anticipation unfolded within its modest but well-kept hospital. Sarah, a 28-year-old with bright eyes and a radiant smile, stood ready to receive life's greatest gift, her son named Jack. Her husband, Daniel, stayed by her side, holding her hand as waves of anticipation swept through the room. "We'll get through this together, love," he silently promised, his grip firm and reassuring. The air was thick with palpable energy, the scent of a clean room mingling with the soft beeps of medical monitors tracking Sarah's vitals. Around them, nurses gathered with expressions blending seriousness and joy, fully aware of the magnitude of the impending moment. Each contraction hit Sarah like a powerful wave, drawing her ever closer to meeting her little boy amid the pain. Seeking strength, she looked into her husband's eyes. "I'm here, love. You're doing incredibly well," Daniel whispered, though his voice betrayed a mix of tenderness, fear, and worry. Overwhelmed by helplessness, he could do nothing but watch as his wife battled the pains of childbirth. Dr. Larson, the obstetrician, entered the room, her calm presence briefly dispelling the tension. "We're almost there, Sarah. Soon you'll hold little Jack in your arms," Dr. Larson assured, a gentle smile spreading across her face. Hours dragged by with time both dizzyingly fast and excruciatingly slow as each contraction and deep breath brought Sarah closer to the moment she so dearly longed for. At last, Dr. Larson announced the arrival of little Jack. "Come on, that's it, well done," the doctor celebrated, delivering the baby to the nurses and placing him gently into a crib. Yet something was amiss. Instead of the expected melodious cry of a newborn, an eerie silence enveloped the room. That silence stretched on, each second feeling like an eternity as everyone stared at the doctor, waiting for a cry that never came. Dr. Larson's face shifted through a rapid range of emotions, from anticipation to shock, then concern, and finally deep sorrow. She swallowed barely perceptibly. "Is everything all right?" the weak and panting mother asked, her heart pounding. Dr. Larson's once confident gaze now clouded with hopelessness as she attempted one more time to stimulate the baby's tiny chest, hoping and praying for a sign of life. But the silence remained unnerving. Looking up to meet the anguished gazes of the parents, an unbearable weight settled on her chest. She knew this was the cruelest of tasks. Taking a deep breath to steel herself, she prepared to deliver the most heart-wrenching news. "Sarah, Daniel," she began, her voice breaking as she searched for words that could somehow soften the blow. Sarah's eyes, still clinging to hope, met the doctor's. Confusion and fear bubbled up within her. Daniel tightened his grip on her hand, trying to anchor her against the coming storm. I'm so sorry, Dr. Larson," he whispered, nearly drowned out by the constant hum of monitors. Dr. Larson continued, her voice trembling. "We did everything we could, but your baby, he didn't make it." The silence that followed was deafening. "What? How? What do you mean?" The parents' cries echoed through the room, filled with disbelief and despair. Sarah felt the floor vanish beneath her feet as a ringing filled her ears, drowning out everything else, while Daniel sobbed beside her. Jack suffered a complication known as neonatal hypoxia, the doctor explained gently. It's a condition where a baby doesn't get enough oxygen before, during, or shortly after birth. We tried every possible intervention, but the damage to his heart was too extensive. "I'm so sorry." Despite her clear and objective explanation, her words seemed like a distant echo against the horrifying reality of their loss. The poor mother felt warm tears streaming down her cheeks, still in shock, almost engulfed by it. Seeking to shield her from the crushing truth, Dr. Larson handed the baby to Sarah so she could see him one last time. Looking down at the small, silent body of little Jack in her arms, Sarah whispered, "So perfect, so still." The sight felt like a cold dagger piercing her heart. The shock morphed into an unbearable pain that ripped at her soul. The scream trapped inside her finally emerged as a muffled moan. Tears poured down her face as she clutched her small, silent son. The dream of being a mother, the countless nights imagining her baby's face, vanished, replaced by a consuming emptiness that made it feel impossible to breathe again. It felt as though she would never be able to live again. Each beat of her heart cruelly reminded her that her little Jack's heart no longer beat in sync with hers. Just moments before, her world had brimmed with hope and joy. Now, it lay shattered. The reality of Jack's absence was too much for Sarah to bear. Clinging to her pain, she allowed it to consume her, for it was the only link she had left to her precious son. The rest of that evening blurred into tears and quiet condolences. Nurses came and went, offering words of comfort and sympathetic looks, but all the couple could manage was holding each other, lost in the emptiness left by the death of their beloved Jack. The following day, news of the newborn's death spread through the small community like a sudden, relentless storm. In Greenwood, that storm manifested as a small white coffin symbolizing an abrupt and unjust end. The tragic news of little Jack quickly reached every resident, each feeling the crushing weight of the loss. At the heart of this storm stood Sarah, whose happiness just hours before had given way to indescribable pain. Her eyes, once full of dreams and hope, now dimmed by devastation. Daniel, equally shaken, tried his best to comfort his wife, who had just given birth. Even with the fresh wounds of childbirth, though he felt the ground vanish beneath him, the once hopeful and joyful home was now shrouded in profound sadness. Neighbors and friends arrived one after another, each bringing comforting words and plates of food, a gesture of solidarity characteristic of the small town. "Sarah, Daniel, I'm so sorry. Jack was so loved," said Mrs. Parker, an elderly neighbor. Those words sounded surreal to the grieving parents, spoken like a distant reality they were struggling to accept. Preparing the funeral was a painful process, each detail a stab to the heart: the small white coffin, the flowers, the gravesite. Leaning on each other, the couple united in their grief and determined to bid farewell to their son with the utmost respect. As the funeral arrived at their home under a gray, gloomy sky, nature itself seemed to share Sarah and Daniel's sorrow. People gathered quietly in the living room, voices hushed and eyes brimming with tears. The young mother held Jack's small coffin, her heart aching with every beat. "He was so loved, Sarah," said Pastor Miller, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "And he always will be. He'll watch over you from heaven." Though the words offered some solace, they could not fill the void left by the little one. With Daniel by her side, Sarah walked toward Jack's small grave, each step an agonizing journey. The funeral ceremony blurred for the heartbroken mother as she found herself in front of gathered people. Sitting in her living room, listening to the pastor's words that she couldn't fully grasp. Everything felt distant. All she could feel was the tearing pain in her heart. After the ceremony, they proceeded to the cemetery where Jack's tiny headstone, engraved with his name, awaited the little white coffin. A young tree planted beside it in honor of little Jack stood as a promise of life amid death, though it could not ease the parents' pain. Sarah knelt beside the small grave, tears streaming uncontrollably, wetting the fresh soil. Daniel stood next to her, equally devastated yet trying to be strong for her. "Why? Why?" Sarah whispered between sobs. As the little coffin began its slow descent, the mechanism's sound echoed deafeningly through the stillness of the cemetery. The stark reality of losing her little one forever began to settle in. Sarah could hardly bear to witness the scene unfolding before her. She couldn't believe it. In her desperation, she screamed at the top of her lungs, "God, give me back my son!" Just then, a clap of thunder shattered the sky. Despite the absence of any clouds, the day was perfectly clear, yet the thunder was unmistakable. What happened, everyone wondered. Then something unbelievable unfolded, a faint but undeniably human sound. For a moment, a baby's cry pierced the air. No one knew how to react. Sarah searched in disbelief for the source of the sound until she realized it was emanating from the small coffin, now halfway lowered into the grave, seemingly crying out. Shocked, Sarah and Daniel rushed to the coffin, pulled it back up, opened the lid, and peered inside. It seemed impossible. But there in the coffin, wrapped snugly in a little blanket, was little Jack, crying. The eyes of everyone present widened in disbelief. The cemetery, once enveloped in sorrow, was suddenly filled with astonishment. Surprise radiated through the crowd, and for the parents, relief and joy overwhelmed them. What had happened? A moment meant for mourning and sadness had erupted into a frenzy of energy. The quiet of the cemetery was shattered by shouts of surprise, cries of relief, and frantic movement. Quickly, the baby was taken from the coffin, wrapped in a warm blanket, while Daniel dashed to the car to fetch help. Sarah cradled the baby in her arms, tears of relief streaming down her face as she embraced her miracle. "Oh, my love, Mommy's here," she whispered to the little one, unsure whether to laugh or cry. When they arrived back at the hospital, the medical team was already in place, eager to examine Jack. Dr. Larson's eyes, once heavy with sorrow, now shone with disbelief at the sight of the little boy. She gently picked up the baby and hurried to conduct the necessary examinations. Every beat of his tiny heart, each breath he took, was perceived as a miracle by everyone present. As the tests began and they anxiously waited for the results, the hospital waiting room filled with nervous anticipation. The community that had shared Sarah's grief now shared her hope. The tension was palpable as everyone awaited the results that would explain how little Jack had come back to life after what seemed like an eternity. Dr. Larson emerged from the examination room, her face a mix of astonishment and wonder. She beckoned the parents aside and began to explain. "I'm speechless. Jack's tests show nothing wrong. His heart beats strongly and his lungs function normally. It's unbelievable," she continued, her voice trembling with wonder. "After much deliberation, we hypothesized that Jack may have experienced Lazarus Syndrome, a spontaneous resumption of blood circulation after the heart has stopped." She paused, surveying the shocked couple before continuing. "Normally, this happens within minutes, or at most within an hour or two after a death certificate is issued. But in Jack's case, it's something I've never seen or heard of before. It's almost like a miracle." Sarah and Daniel exchanged hopeful, almost incredulous glances. While the doctor searched for a scientific explanation that defied comprehension, for Sarah and Daniel, the most important truth was that their little boy was okay. Their little miracle was alive and breathing, and nothing else mattered. News of the resurrected baby spread swiftly through Greenwood, with people whispering in awe wherever the mother and child went. Local newspapers and even national television networks broadcasted the incredible story, thrusting their lives into the spotlight. The community, once united by grief, now bonded by joy and reverence for this miracle. Jack's story was more than mere news. It became a symbol of hope and faith, surpassing the confines of a medical anomaly. The local church hosted a Thanksgiving service, and the people began treating the baby as a beacon of hope. Meanwhile, the medical community, perplexed by the phenomenon, invited doctors from across the country to study the case. Though Lazarus Syndrome was the most plausible explanation, it still seemed too incredible to be true. As scientists scrambled to explain the inexplicable, Sarah and Daniel watched in amazement and gratitude, caring less about the theories than the fact that their son was alive. For them, nothing mattered but the presence of their little miracle. Their home, once filled with overwhelming sadness, now vibrated with joy and love. Yet one oddity lingered in their minds: the thunder that roared through the sky at the exact moment Sarah cried out for her son. This phenomenon, more than anything else, remained etched in the memories of all who witnessed it that day. The sky was clear and without storm clouds, yet a loud, clear clap of thunder sounded as if the universe itself answered a mother's anguished plea. Local meteorologists found nothing unusual in the records that day, deepening the mystery. This strange, out-of-nowhere thunder became an inseparable part of Jack's legend. It merged with the mystery of the miracle. For scientists, it was yet another enigma. For the faithful, an affirmation of a miracle, a direct response to a mother's cry. Ultimately, like Jack's astounding return, the thunder remained a beautiful mystery, a part of history that would forever be remembered, debated, but never fully explained. Time passed, and Sarah watched her little boy grow. His laughter filled the house, his eyes sparkling with life and curiosity. He was her miracle, a constant reminder that even in the deepest darkness, there is always a glimmer of light. Life in Greenwood went on, and while the buzz about the resurrected baby eventually faded, Jack's story never did. For Sarah and Daniel, their son's story became a living legend, a tale of hope, faith, and love. It reminded everyone in Greenwood that no matter how challenging life may seem, there is always room for a surprising miracle. If you enjoyed this story, the next video that pops up on your screen is sure to move you as well. Don't forget to subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. See you in the next heartwarming story.